Hello again, not from my front porch. I'm actually still here in Carroll. I am at the Babyland Cemetery with my daughter Victoria. See, my daughter Victoria down here. Now, as you know from when we previously talked, I've told you the story about Victoria. You've seen that in a previous episode. But the 15th of May here would be her 27th birthday, and it's a little weird for me to think that because I know my daughter Ashley is 28. She'll be 29 later this year. My son just turned 25 earlier this year in January, and it's sometimes a little weird for me to think that technically I also have a 27-year-old daughter in the middle of the two of them. That would be really weird to have them all available right now. But what's really interesting is over time people say that you forget stuff, or you get over the loss of a loved one or something like that, and it's not really true. You eventually don't think about them as much. You may learn to deal and cope with it differently. But as I'm standing here talking to you right now, I can still remember the events of 27 years ago like they just happened yesterday. All of the events, the discussions, the decisions, the anxieties, the emotions, I can remember all of it clear as a bell, just like it was just happening like right now. And so you never forget. You just deal with it as time goes on. I'm actually here with my mom Dorothy Smith. See? Hi, Mom.
Hi.
I came over for Mother's Day, and then we thought we'd come out here and pay a visit to Victoria, but you and I feel like I must be standing on a hill, which doesn't help because you're already shorter anyway, and don't need to be making it any worse. But of course, my mom, I have had to deal with the loss of a child. My mom hasn't had to deal with that. She's not lost a child, but she has lost brothers and sisters, and your parents, and aunts and uncles and cousins, and so and each one of those hurts, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And you never,
Especially my sister.
yeah, and you never, yeah, my Aunt Donna, just she's the most recent one, yeah, and they're. When someone's gone, they're just gone. And you never really get over it, do you?
No.
You may not think about her every single day, but when you do think about her, it still hurts just as fresh and as real, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it's this idea that with time everything gets better. I wouldn't necessarily say better, but you can just learn to deal with it better. Yeah. You learn to continue living because life just keeps happening, and you just got to keep moving on. But you still miss those people.
Yes.
Yeah, you still love them, and shifting gears away from those who have passed away, but even your kids, even when your kids grow up and they're no longer living at home and they're no longer right there under your roof, they are still your kids, right?
Right, exactly.
Yep. They never stop being your children.
Right.
I remember at one point being a foolish young parent thinking there was going to come a day where both of my kids would grow up and they would move out of the house, and then they'd be independent, and I'd hardly have any interaction with them except on holidays, and sharing fun stuff. And yet that didn't really happen for a long time. In fact, my daughter now is married, and she's they're carving out fairly decent on their own now down there in Florida. But up until then, she was still living with me and was still dependent on me for quite a bit of her expenses. And my son now still, he's not living with me, but he still depends on me to pay some of his bills and things. And it's like there's a part of me that doesn't fit the model that I once thought was going to happen, but I'm their dad. They're my kids. You still take care of them. You look out for them. No matter how old they get or how much taller they may be than you, your kids are still your little kids, aren't they?
Right.
Even the ones that are going to turn 50 this year.
Yeah.
Ugh. But you're not old enough to have a kid who's 50. I'm sure people tell you that all the time, right?
Could be.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Because she's young at heart. Well, anyway, we're out here at the Carroll Cemetery, and we were, again, paying our respects to Victoria and just reminiscing a bit about how special Victoria was. My mom was even noting that when she was delivered emergency C-section, but when she was laying there in the bed, she was a perfect-looking little baby. She physically, she looked like she should
Very
be pretty and healthy and strong and fine. And
heartbreaking with that dress, the roses.
yeah, it was the whole, obviously there was a lot about the situation that was heartbreaking, that, I wouldn't wish on anybody. And we don't fully still know all the reasons of why things happened as they did, but things happen and life goes on, and we do too, right? Right. All right. So from my mom and I'll see you next time from my front porch.
Bye-bye.
Bye.